pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to the Morrison County Board of Adjustment public hearing for today's date, which is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. I have a few items to cover before we get started. Please sign in at the door if you have not already done so. There you will also find a detailed handout of the step-by-step procedure we will follow tonight if you wish to take one. Please put any electronic devices on silent mode at this time. Also, please note that all testimony is being recorded for the record. Members of the board are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts. Land Services staff is here to assist the Board of Adjustments with its duties. The task of the board is to consider requests for variances and appeals from an order, requirement, or decision made by a county zoning official in accordance with the state law and county ordinance. Each request is considered on its own merit. The burden of proving a practical difficulty rests with the applicant. If a variance is granted, it is granted to the land, not to the landowner. There is a protocol for how we will proceed tonight. For each variance request on the agenda, we will hear a staff report, testimony from the applicants, and the board will discuss and gather more information as needed. Next, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request. I will ask each party to come to the podium, state their name and address for the record, give their testimony. Please be as factual as possible and direct all statements and questions to me. After all testimony is complete, I will close the public hearing portion of the process. The board will then review and discuss the case in terms of our finding of fact criteria as required by Minnesota statute and county ordinance. We'll have a series of votes, discuss whether conditions be made, have a final motion to approve or deny the request based on those findings. After this final vote on your request, you may leave if you wish. We have a couple agenda items tonight, and the first agenda item is the election of our officers. So at this time, we'll take nominations and Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, you'll need for chair, vice chair, and secretary.
chair, vice chair, and secretary nominations.
Mr. Chair, I'd nominate you for chairman.
Thank you, Brent. Is there any more?
Mr. Chair, I would say let's cast a white ballot for John for chair.
Anybody else? Okay, we have,
So you have one nomination. Are you closing nominations?
that's it. We'll close nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
All right.
So I'll serve as the new chair for this upcoming year. We need nominations for a vice chair. ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Marvin Treadle.
Okay. Anybody else? Any seconds?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we close ballots, or close the nominations and cast the unanimous ballot for Marvin.
Okay, all in favor for Marv as vice chair, say aye.
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 Okay, Marv will serve as our vice chair for 2025, and now we need nominations for a secretary.
Mr. Chair, I nominate George. I think.
I'll second that. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close this portion to it. All in favor of George serving as the secretary, say aye.
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 And aye. George Sandy will serve as our secretary for the Board of Adjustment. And is there anything else I need to do?
No, Mr. Chair, you're
Okay.
good to go.
Agenda item 1 complete. And we will move on to agenda item 2, William and Cheryl Andrus, 11945 250th Avenue in Pierce, Minnesota, application for a variance to allow a hog barn on 60 acres where 75 is required. Is there somebody here representing the request? Come on up. When you have a seat here, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bill Andrews, 11945 250th Avenue, Piers, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Darvin Sayre, 14453 250th Avenue, 56364.
All right, thank you both for your time tonight. Ms. Amy, staff report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is a variance request to reduce the acreage of a Tier 3 feedlot below the minimum. It's located in Section 25 of Agram Township. The ordinance reference is 1209.1, and that requires 75 contiguous acres for a Tier 3 feedlot. Here's the location of the parcel on this map located with the red dot. And then here is the application received from the applicant. And you have also received a copy of this in your packet. Here's a site drawing provided by the applicant. Here's an aerial photograph of the property outlined in blue. And then here is the site photos taken at the site viewing. And then here again, and I think I had the wrong slide in there, so here is this is the property that we're working with tonight. All right, so this 100-acre property is in Section 25 of Agram Township, and it's a registered Tier 3 swine feedlot. So that's already existing on the parcel. The barn is on the southeast corner of the property, and there is no dwelling on the property. The current feedlot owner lives off-site. The applicant would like to split the barn and 60 acres from the 100-acre property for the purposes of selling the feedlot operation and to keep the agricultural field. The minimum acreage requirement for large-scale feedlots is 75 acres. The proposed land split would reduce the feedlot's acreage to 60. The applicant does have other acreage within the county for manure management purposes and will make that available to the new feedlot owner. The current owner owns the property to the east of the barn. The permit for the barn indicates the setback from the east side property line is 110 feet. Back when this barn was permitted back in 1994, a 100-foot setback was required. According to Beacon, the setback is not met, so staff has a suggested condition that when creating, if this is approved, when creating that 60-acre parcel, the property owner shall have the surveyor ensure the barn meets the 100-foot setback to the east property line. If the barn does not meet that setback, then the land split shall be done in such a way to meet that east side property line setback. The applicable comprehensive land use plan goals and objectives is in agriculture, Goal A1, Objective 1, Goal A2, and A4. 15 notices were sent and no comment was received prior to this hearing. And then here you're finding of fact and decision questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Amy. How'd we do on the staff report? Anything to add, correct? From your end? Okay. Well, I'll open it up for the board to ask questions on the application and make comments.
Mr. Chair,
Barf.
this is directed more so to Amy. Is this creating a nonconformity?
Well, when you give a variance, then it really isn't a nonconformity, but any expansion of the feedlot then would require a variance.
Okay, so, and I guess another thought, we were talking about this out there in the field, was the new owner would like to put a shop on it, or there's a possibility of putting a house down the road. If they wanted to do either one of them, they would not need a variance.
No.
Okay. So another thing, as I was looking at this property on Beacon, and it showed on there that part of that 60 acres, it looks like there's some very low land, like on the Beacon, and I would imagine you could bring it up here too on the slide. You can see there's some pools of like water there in the summer time, and yeah, I think there looks like there's actually a little stream almost in it there. Is there water standing there?
No, actually, that is just a dark area. That's farmed straight through. It can on a very wet year be somewhat wet, but it's basically dark sand is all it is.
Okay, because on Beacon, when I was looking at it, and it looked like there were some pockets of water standing in there, and it,
You know, and it's possibility, at the right time of the year, that
Okay.
there could be, but it's all farmed straight through.
okay. And a comment I'll make, we have a nitrate problem in Morrison County. Obviously, it's
obviously,
been
yep.
listed all over.
We're all aware of it.
And then you talked about the new owner would possibly using it. And I would think that, under manure management, it would be checked. And I know we're looking at something else, but I'm just making some commentary towards it. So another thought I was looking at, what you're proposing, is to make this land as a curve for it to pivot.
Yes,
And something I thought about, man, how many parcels do we got in Morrison County, other counties that are like this here? And if you look at how our property is spelled out, that's going to be one heck of a, the corner to corner. And not that that can't be done, but
Yeah.
it's going to be quite a complex.
no, and this is just a rough drawing, and actually I have a son-in-law who is a surveyor, and he looked at it, he kind of laughed, he said, well, I'm gonna have to draw a line, straight line to here and straight line to there to make it, so you can actually come up with a legal description, so, obviously it isn't gonna end up quite rounded like that.
Okay, because to me, I was just like, what are we creating for the future?
Yeah.
And when we look at these variances,
Yep.
it goes to the land. And it looks like you got a young man that's interested in the future, but then from the next generation and next generation, where are we going? This is another question to Amy. Do we have other properties around in Morrison County or other counties? Have you seen curved areas taken out like this here?
Well, Mr. Chair, we've seen all sorts of configurations. We do not have a requirement that things are a neat, nice square or rectangle. There's some counties that do require that to be the case. We do not. So we certainly can and do get very complicated legal descriptions in, and that's really at the whim of the property owner. What we look for when we have a proposed split is that it meets the minimum requirements or design requirements for the zoning district that it's in. So for example, with this one, we'd be ensuring that it has at least 150 foot of frontage on the road. We'd be ensuring that it's at least 1 acre in size, because those are the minimum design standards for the agriculture zoning district. Beyond that, we don't have any requirements. Does it make it, maybe a little more complicated to find your property lines in the future? Maybe, but that rests on the property owner.
Okay, I was just wondering what we're creating for the future, because there's a lot of pivots in Morrison County, and agriculture takes precedence, and how do you do this? And Clint brought up at our last time we sat down with the county commissioners, he said, we are gonna have these farms that you have setups with dairy, and they got hogs, they got poultry, and how are we going to keep it together? How do you do it? And here we are, what are we setting the tone for the future? And and here, what route we're going to take, I don't know, but
I fully
it's just,
understand where you're coming from. I've been around farming all my life and, trying to make it all, as far as with the residential and the farming and everything, like you said, you gotta try to figure out how to make it all work for everybody.
Yep, and so as I look at this here, what you're proposing, and it was a 100-acre parcel, and taking 60 of that out for this. Another thought, and why I'm saying this is a thought, number 6 question is about economic reasons. And the comment was made to make it where the person who wants to purchase it being able to afford it. If you look at that pivot, half the pivot covers that. If you possibly rented it, half the pivot, ran it, there's other alternatives, but I'm just thinking, hey, did you give that some thought rather than creating this here and rather than having such a, I'm looking at the future surveyed out corners and everything else that'll make it quite complex. And possibly renting it or whatever. I know, I'm just throwing that out there.
Comment for the record, question, or for discussion? What are you on with?
I'm saying here, I'm thinking question 6, when I see how they answered it,
Yep.
I can't vote for this in an affirmative way, the way it is, for economic reasons. And I'm saying here for you to do that, here, it's really hard for us to approve it in that because it's spelled out so we can afford it to the new owner.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Marv.
That's all I have for this moment. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
George?
So Amy, pull that map up again, would you please, that we just had up?
The aerial photo?
Yes, please.
You bet.
So, my question is over on would be the northwest corner, and I understand why you're doing it, because it would be inaccessible from a road if that piece were attached to what you want to survey off for the hog barn. How many acres is that piece, Bill, roughly?
If I went northwest corner, you're talking about.
Yeah, the piece that you got sawed off on the northwest corner.
Yeah, and the reason I took that off of there was because it isn't really accessible.
Yeah, I understand that,
You
yeah.
know, and if you would rather have me sell it with that piece on there, I would rather do that because I can square it off and it would be, but, and even for Darvin had said earlier that he's the one that's trying to purchase it. He doesn't mind the fact that he can't get back to that. That is a small little sand field that doesn't amount to anything. It's just that I don't know how the county feels about having a piece of land that isn't accessible without crossing a river. I don't know how that works.
That's a good question.
Miss Amy?
So if it was like this piece here, you can't create a landlocked piece. My understanding is you own adjacent to it.
Yep.
So you would need to combine that. It can't be a standalone parcel. You'd need to combine it with your adjacent parcel that does have access to the road. So that's how you would be taking care of that, but it can't be created and just hang out there like that.
Correct, but if I was to go straight north and, take that corner in and sell that piece off in order to keep it a more,
So are you saying if you came up like this?
yes,
Yes, because you have access to you can access it. It doesn't, standing alone, it doesn't have any road access. That's what we're looking for.
okay.
And so this does not have any, you'd have to have easement through someone's property to get to it in any way, shape, or form.
If I was to sell it, you mean, or?
Correct. So if you split it like this piece, this little triangle,
Yep.
has to be combined with an adjacent piece that you own that has access.
So the property on the other side, the property.
To the north, yes, or to the east, because you own to the east, so you'd have to have enough of a sliver there where it's contiguous to that, so you can combine it.
Mr.
It
Chair.
can't hang out by itself. And this is kind of a detail that really, we can design this land split all you want, I guess, if you want to do that. But really, the question is creating a parcel less than the 75. That's really the question at hand. I can work with the property owner on how that's going to be configured.
But that's not what this application is asking for.
The application is just asking to go under the 75 acres.
Understood. Clint?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
So I guess my question be, if that piece was added, would we even be sitting here tonight? Would that make it 75
I
acres?
can measure it. Yep, I can measure.
Probably
it.
not.
It's like 66 or something like that. It's
Okay.
68. It still would be short. It still would be short about 5 or 6 acres.
Yeah, that's my question. That's what I was getting at, is that if that piece were added, does that give us 75?
I believe not. According to my surveyor, I believe it was like 67 or 68 roughly he had come
Okay.
up with.
Yep, take your time. While Amy is That just come up. While Amy's pulling this up, does anybody else have anything for the applicant or for comment?
Mr. Chair,
Clint?
just one thing, I don't know the total numbers, but just to go back to Marv's question, there is quite a few pivot corners in the county that are sold off where people got houses in. I can think of 3 of them that are within 3 miles of my house, just to help with the question you had. One question I had, again, I'll bring up because we talked about it at the site visit, was how it works with the manure management plan, and we got that squared away with Amy, that their office would oversee that. But maybe just for the record, would you want to kind of talk us through or tell us what, you're still going to allow them to use your acres or whatever, so granted, we don't have to hash that out tonight because that's
Right.
just something that can be done at the office with the feedlot officer and land services, but.
Yeah. So actually, the way this is now, I have 200 acres. I used to rent land down the road. I gave that up just for the simple fact of age. I didn't bring the letters along tonight because I didn't believe I have it. I have 2 neighbors that farm, one farms 120 acres, the other one's got 300, that have been taking the manure, half of it, basically. And that will be available, and I talked to those guys today, like I said, or prior to this. So, I mean, basically, there still is going to be close to 400 acres available for this hog manure.
And Mr. Chair,
Amy?
I want to make sure you're not burdening him with coming up with acreage for him. This is going to be his operation. It's going to, that feedlot is going to be transferred into his name, and we're going to be holding him responsible for coming up with those acres, and he operationally might make some changes or identify. So I just want to be clear that we're not burdening the applicant who is going to sell the property with showing. I think the question would be for the new buyer, what do you have enough acreage, or do you have
Yes, and
access to
I
enough
know-
acreage to
I
handle
know those guys
that?
very well too, actually.
Yeah.
So,
And I wasn't trying to make that point. I was just trying an overview because I know that's taken care of other than our purview here tonight. I just wanted everybody just to be aware that that is something that's looked at, maybe not here tonight, so it ain't like we missed it. It's
Nope, I
done
understand.
privately or through just proper channels without being part of this, so. That's about all I really had for questions, I guess.
Okay. Anybody else from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Amy?
I did measure off, and I'll slide this down so you can see it went just like this. So it's essentially just cutting out the tillable. And I'm getting roughly about 65.63 acres. So even if that was squared up, we still would be under the 75. Does that answer the question, George?
Yes, yeah.
Great.
That's what I suspected, but I
Yeah.
want to see it.
Okay. Anybody else from the board?
Just run quick before we move on, just one comment that we kind of discussed a little bit on the site visit on Friday about why, he wants to make that pivot come in and cut that out. Part of it would be just in our discussion on Friday was if he would sell and make it square and make the right amount of acres, his pivot is gonna circle around somebody else's land, okay? Yes, them two can make a good deal maybe, but these 2 people ain't gonna be here in 25, 30 years. So then we run into the problem of what's gonna happen in the future might be a bigger problem than we're looking at today. So that's just a comment and something we kind of discussed on Friday, so I just thought I'd say that for the record.
There is one thing I wanted to add, and I haven't brought it up, because I'm getting along with the neighbor. But there is already, in the corner of that property, if you look, trying to think my direction here, be northeast corner. My neighbor actually owns 10 acres in that corner. That pivot runs over that corner already. If something happens where that house will be sold in the next 5 years, that house gets sold, I can't run that pivot across that land, then I can still run it in a backward circle, which is not efficient, but it's done many times. If I get locked out of that corner and get locked out of the other side, then I can take the pivot and throw it away, and it's dry sand land. So that's, and I didn't want to bring that neighbor thing in there because I'm not picking on the neighbor, he has the right to do what he wants. But that is also kind of a little bit of a factor that affects this piece.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate everything.
All right, hearing nothing more from the board at this point, we're going to open this up to the public comments. So if you have anything to say to this application, please go up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and state your facts. Any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? We will now close this portion of the meeting to the public and move on to our finding of fact criteria.
Mr. Chair,
Marv?
I would like to make a comment for us to think about, and this is brought up earlier. This is probably just only the beginning of what's going to be happening in a lot of these farms, and what are we creating for the future? Is this what we want in Morrison County, or this is not what we want? But I'm just something to think about. So, thank you.
Thank you, Marv. Okay, on to the questions. Is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? George?
Yes, I believe granting a variance would not change anything in this area. It's an existing Tier 3 operation. This variance will allow the productive land to be under irrigation production, and by changing the minimum acreage requirement for this parcel that they want to put on with that barn.
Okay, anybody else?
I would just like to add what George said. If we would look through our goals and objectives and the comprehensive plan that's spelled out for us in our application, in this application here, it meets all the A1, the objective 1, goals A2 and A4, even with being a smaller size parcel than what's required by ordinance. Even being smaller, it still can it meets all them criteria is what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
Marv?
I agree with part they're saying, because we want to keep ag as president, and it does fit in that area. But I'm just, first, as you heard me say, that's going to be quite a land description, and they can do it without a question about that. And what is that going to create for future owners and whatever? And is this what we want to have in Morrison County rather than square property lines like that? So in that respect, I think it doesn't fulfill what Morrison County Land Use Ordinance is in comp plan.
Thanks, Marv. Brent?
Mr. Chair, I'll just piggyback on that, no pun intended. Asking to deviate from 75 acres to the 60 acres is what the request is. How the lines shake out here, we aren't going to know how those lines are going to shake out quite yet. That's going to be figured out by the surveyors and county staff as you move forward. So the request is 75 to be 60, and that way you keep the hog operation and ag land with the pivot to keep the irrigation producing land. So in that regard, I think it's in harmony.
Thank you, Brent. Anybody else? Okay, on to question 2. Is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by land use ordinance? Clint?
Yes, you look at the application's answer. No previous variances were on this piece of property. The hog barn would continue to operate, and all the ag land would also be farmed. Everything would kind of stay the same. It'd just be separate owners. The other thing to look at, I think, on this question that I would go along with being reasonable is if it's 75 acres or if it's 10 acres. The 75 acres, you still don't have enough land for all the manure that barn produces. So it's all, no matter how this gets split, it's pretty much all getting distributed out through the manure management plan and multiple acres throughout the area. So when I look at that and everything's confinement and to shorten up the acres on this particular ask, I think it is reasonable.
Thank you, Clint.
Mr.
Anybody
Chair.
else? Brent?
You're going along in those lines, I think, what Clint had said is appropriate. The 75 acres that's there is not spreadable land as it is. So reducing it from 75 to 60 doesn't really change anything, just like Clint said. So I think it's reasonable in this particular case, not that we're setting a precedent, but we need to look at each particular application that's in front of us, so.
Yep. Thank you, Brent. Anybody else? Okay, question 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? And I'll take that one. I think this was referenced already, using the acres virtually the same as they are right now, minus the 15 to get to the 60. So, and where it's actually located, in the county, it'd be hard to tell the difference between the 60 and the 75 at that juncture, but you're not changing anything as far as the character goes for where this is being constructed at this time. Anybody else? Okay, question 4. Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Marvin?
I don't believe it is. I don't see a practical difficulty. The practical difficulty they're using is a pivot. Pivots can be moved, and and as the owner said, he could remove the pivot if it had to be. So using that pivot for that, I don't see that as a practical difficulty. And it's a 100-acre parcel, so I believe that could be left as 100 or 75 also.
Okay, thank you, Marv. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would, just looking at the piece of land, I guess I would tend to believe that there is a practical difficulty there because of the Skunk River. I would venture to say that that hog barn was probably built on the spot that it's built because of setbacks to the Skunk River. So had the Skunk River not been built there, that hog barn we probably wouldn't be sitting here today, because that hog barn probably would have been on a square piece of property that wouldn't need a variance.
Thank you, George.
Mr. Chair.
Brent?
I think the property is unique enough with the hog operation, the Skunk River, and the ag land with the pivot. If split at 75, the 15 acres, if splitting that 100 down to 75, you're taking that 15 acres off that 75, making it 60, you keep the irrigated land with the pivot. You're not losing that by the strict enforcement of the 75-acre requirement.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, anybody else? Question 5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Brent?
Looking at this, the lay of the land, the slopes, the soils, pivot irrigation, the wetland, the Skunk River shoreland, the hog barns location now. I think all of those things come into play here, and some of those are created by the landowner or private or prior landowners, but some of them are just the lay of the land, the slopes, the soils, the wetland, and the river, the river running through there, the creek.
Thank you, Brent. Anybody else? Okay, question 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? George?
Yes, I believe economic considerations are always a part of ag, when it comes to ag. But this variance is also about protecting cropland on a parcel in which the Skunk River dissects. I think it makes perfect sense to approve this variance.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
Marv?
I think the majority of this is driven by economic reasons here. Not all, because preserving ag is good, without a question about it, and that's precedence over here. But I'm just thinking that we look at it, majority of it is driven is economic reasons.
Okay, thank you, Marv. Brent, Clint, anything?
I agree with what George said.
Thank you, Clint.
Mr. Chair?
Brent?
I'll just comment on the last question here. Well, certainly economics is involved here for sure, but it's more than that. It's the pivots of irrigation on the farmland and keeping, egg operations going as well as keeping the hog barn going. So it's keeping two agricultural businesses moving forward. So it's more than just the economics of trying to split it down to what somebody can afford to buy. It's utilizing that land as best you can, the way it's set up.
Thank you, Brent. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move to the vote.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chairman? Nope, go ahead.
Yep.
I'd like to put that condition in that Amy read off. Could you read that again, just so everybody knows exactly? I'll screw it up if I try to.
Yes. I'm having some technical difficulties
Okay.
since I had to switch, so I'll just find the slide and I'll read it to you. Okay, so the suggested condition is when creating the 60-acre parcel, the property owner shall have the surveyor ensure the barn meets the 100-foot setback from the east property line. If the barn does not meet the setback, the land split shall be done in such a way to meet the east side property line setback.
Okay, Mr. Chair, and then the applicant's fine with that.
I'm fine with that,
Okay,
yes.
so I'd like to have that as a condition, so when we're thinking about this, that condition's in mind.
Considered for your vote. Okay, question 1, is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? George?
Yes.
Clint?
I believe with that condition, I can say yes.
I, John, is yes. Marv?
No,
Brent?
Yes.
Question 2, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by land use ordinance? Clint?
Yes.
I, John, is yes. Marv?
yes,
Brent?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Question 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? I, John, is yes. Marv?
yes,
Brent?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Question 4, is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Marv?
no,
Brent?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
I, John, is yes. Question 5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Brent?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
I, John, is yes. Marv?
no,
Question 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? George?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
I, John, is yes. Marv?
no,
Brent?
Yes.
All of the questions were answered in the affirmative based on the finding of fact criteria. Do I have a motion to approve the variance as requested with the condition?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second that.
motion was made by George, seconded by Brent to approve. All in favor, say aye. Marv?
nay,
Brent?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Clint?
Aye.
And I, John, is aye. The motion carries to approve the variance as requested with the condition.
Thank
Free to
you.
go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amy, and thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. What's that? Oh, gotcha. Okay, there are no more agenda items for applications tonight, so we are on to new or old business.
Mr. Chair, I think you have some minutes to approve from Looks like from December
Agenda is
10th.
out of order, and we're going to fix that for the next meeting.
All right.
Anybody have any questions on the minutes, corrections, or can I get a motion to approve?
Chair, I make a motion, we approve the December 10th minutes.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
A motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Sign them.
Oh. Good to go?
Yes.
Now we are on to new business.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I've got two things. One, you should have received an email today regarding submittal of your mileage. That would have come from Beth Berg. So there's an email for online submittal of your mileage. So moving forward, you'll do that there. I think she assigned you a video on how to do it. If you have any questions or struggle with it, let me know, but you'd be logging into your Paycom account that you have with the county, and then just submit that online, and then then that'll remove your paper submittal that you do every time you're here. Do you recall getting that email? Do you?
It was in.
Look at anything
It was in
today, so I don't know.
the filtered file
Okay,
of the
so
new.
if it didn't come in, make sure you check your clutter. I'll resend it. So just verify that you got it.
Okay.
If you didn't, let me know and I'll resend it.
So Amy, when we do these trips to look at the
Yes.
variants, we put in miles down, but
Yes.
I believe Sharon adds when we drive to the meeting here also mileage or not?
Yes, you get paid mileage for viewings and for your trip here, and so
Okay.
you'll need to submit all of that, yes.
Okay, so
We'll
we'd have to add that too.
submit tonight's too, not tonight, but like the night of the
Go
meeting.
ahead and fill your paper one out for tonight. And then moving forward, though, you'll switch to the electronic submittal.
For the meeting and the.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, for the
Yep.
meeting and the viewing.
Okay.
Okay, all right. The second item is, for the March 18th agenda, we have the Kevin and Felicia Bush property for public hearing. For viewing, typically, I ask you if you're considering a property that you have already seen, I ask you whether you want a viewing or not. So I just wanted to ask you that so we know for planning purposes.
I viewed that property, I believe, 3 times, so I have no reason to go to it.
Okay.
I feel. And in this time of the year with the snow and everything else, you're not gonna get a real good feel for it. You'll get an idea. That's my opinion.
I guess if it just depends on his application. I haven't necessarily seen the whole thing, but if
Yeah.
the actual position of, is it different, I guess, than,
So, and you'll be getting that staff report here in a couple of weeks, but the last request was to be 6 feet from the bluff. This request, the house is a bit smaller and it's 15 feet from the bluff. So it's moved to the east a hair, but still is the same variance request or same type of request, but the position of the home has changed.
okay?
I remember property good enough, I don't have to see it unless it's gonna cause some issues.
Okay.
I'm fine with either way.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I have not been there, so I guess I would like to see it.
Okay.
So I don't know what that does for the
Well,
group,
then it's
but
going to be a scheduled viewing.
Yep.
So,
I would like to see it.
okay, sounds good. So the other thing I'm going to tell you then is March 14th would be the viewing. I will not be here for that. So Matt will be accompanying you on that viewing.
I'm definitely going.
So that's all I have, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, for new business.
Okay, thank you very much. Any old business?
I don't have any of that either, Mr. Chair.
Then I would entertain a motion to get us out of here.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.